Elderly man finds bag hanging on cliff edge, and what was inside shocks everyone. Harold Mitchell was breathing heavily as he watched the green object swinging dangerously on the rocky ledge. His wife Dorothy Mitchell held his arm tightly, begging him to give up the crazy idea of retrieving that mysterious bag they had spotted during their morning walk. That's when he grabbed the fishing rod he always carried on the trails and reached out his arm, ignoring the protests of his companion of 50 years of marriage. "Harold, for heaven's sake, leave it alone. It could be dangerous," shouted Dorothy, trying to pull him away from the edge. "Calm down, woman. I just want to see what's in there," he replied, focused on maneuvering the rod to reach the bag's handle. "What if it's something bad? What if someone threw it there on purpose?" Harold stopped for a moment and looked at his wife. At 68, he still had that determined look Dorothy had known since their courting days in rural Tennessee. It was the same look he had when he decided to sell everything to move to Hot Springs in search of a better life. "Dorothy, my dear, don't you think it's strange for a bag to be hanging right here at our favorite walking spot?" She sighed. It really was strange. For 15 years they had walked that trail every morning. They knew every stone, every tree along the path. There was never anything different there, much less a green bag hanging in such an unusual way. Carefully, Harold managed to hook the rod's hook through the bag's handle and began to pull it slowly. The object was heavier than it looked, and he had to brace himself better on the rocks to have enough strength. "Got it!" he exclaimed when he finally brought the bag close. Dorothy approached with curiosity mixed with fear. The bag was made of green canvas, the kind used to carry clothes or groceries, but it was surprisingly clean for something that seemed to have been there for some time. "Open it, Harold." "My curiosity is killing me," she said, momentarily forgetting her worries. He untied the cord that closed the opening and looked inside. His face changed completely. The color drained from his cheeks, and his eyes widened, as if he had seen something impossible. "What is it? What's in there?" asked Dorothy, trying to peek over her husband's shoulder. Harold took a yellowed envelope from the bag, then another, and another. His hands trembled as he looked at the name written on the first envelope, Harold Mitchell. "Dorothy." His voice came out only as a whisper. "These letters are for me." "Letters? Who would leave letters for you hanging in the middle of nowhere?" He picked up a few more envelopes. All had his name written in the same handwriting. A handwriting he knew very well because it was his own. "Dorothy, I wrote these letters." "What do you mean you wrote them? When? Why would you leave your own letters in a bag hanging on a cliff?" Harold opened the first envelope with trembling hands. The sheet of paper was yellowed with age, but the ink was still clear. He read the first lines aloud. "My dear Harold, if you are reading this letter, it means you have found the memories we decided to hide. I know it will be hard to believe, but everything written here is true, even if you don't remember." Dorothy felt a chill in her stomach. That was indeed her husband's handwriting. She would recognize it anywhere. But what did that about memories we decided to hide mean? "Keep reading," she asked, sitting on a nearby rock. "The blue-eyed boy you are seeing now in your mind is not imagination. He existed. He was part of our life for 3.5 years. His name was Christopher, and he called us Grandpa Harold and Grandma Dorothy." Harold stopped reading and looked at his wife. Both were confused. They never had children, let alone grandchildren. "Harold, that doesn't make sense. We never had grandchildren, you know that." "I know, Dorothy, but—" He touched his forehead. "When I read this name, Christopher, it's as if something stirs here inside my head." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. Dorothy took another letter from the bag and opened it. This one was written in her own handwriting. "Dorothy Mitchell, you were always stronger than me when facing pain. But this time, we both chose to forget together. To forget so we wouldn't suffer. The doctor said it was possible, that our minds could block the bad memories. But it also blocked the good ones. Christopher wasn't our grandson by blood, but he was ours in our hearts." "Harold, did I write this? When?" They spent the next hour reading letter after letter. Each one brought details of a life they didn't remember living. Stories about a boy who appeared in the letters as if he were part of the family. Descriptions of outings, games, shared meals. "Look at this one, Dorothy." Harold showed a sheet with a colorful drawing glued to it. "Christopher drew our house today. He even included the front garden and the mango tree you love to water so much." Dorothy looked at the drawing and felt something strange in her chest. The house on paper was exactly like theirs, with details only someone who lived there would know. But the drawing was clearly made by a child. "And how would a child know these details about our house?" "I don't know, Dorothy. But look here," he pointed to the corner of the drawing. "It says, 'For Grandpa Harold and Grandma Dorothy with love, Christopher.'" They continued exploring the contents of the bag. Besides the letters, there were small objects: a blue toy car, some colored pebbles, an old movie ticket, and a faded photo showing a blonde, blue-eyed boy smiling between two people they couldn't make out well due to the photo's condition. "Dorothy, are you seeing what I'm seeing in this photo?" She held the image up to the light and her eyes widened. Despite being faded, it was possible to see that the two people beside the boy wore clothes very similar to what they used to wear years ago. The man wore a blue plaid shirt, just like one Harold had kept in the closet for years, and the woman had a floral dress that strongly resembled one Dorothy owned. "Harold, this is frightening me. How can there be a photo of us with a child we don't know? Maybe we do know him, Dorothy. Maybe we just don't remember." That afternoon, they cancelled all their appointments and stayed home rereading the letters, trying to understand what was happening. The letters told a complex story about how they met Christopher at the City Children's Home in Hot Springs, how they began visiting him weekly, and how he became part of their lives. "Listen to this one, Harold," Dorothy read with a choked voice. "Today, Christopher asked if he could call us Grandpa and Grandma. I said yes, but I cried in the bathroom afterward because I wanted so badly for him to really be our grandson. And this one here," Harold showed another letter. "The adoption process is almost ready. In 3 months, Christopher will live with us forever. I can't wait to show him the room we fixed up." But there were more recent letters that told a different story. A family from Chicago had managed to adopt Christopher before they could complete the process. The boy had moved away, and they never saw him again. "I can't stop crying," read Dorothy from a letter dated 5 years ago. "Christopher left today. The new family seems good, but my heart is broken. How are we going to live without that smile lighting up our home? The doctor said there is a treatment to help us forget very painful memories," continued Harold, reading another letter. "We are thinking about doing it. We can't even look at his room anymore without crying." The puzzle pieces were beginning to fit together. According to the letters, they had undergone an experimental treatment for selective blocking of traumatic memories. The procedure aimed to erase only the memories related to the suffering of the separation, but it ended up also erasing all the good memories they had of the boy. "Dorothy, do you remember anything about going to the doctor for this treatment?" she thought carefully. There were some vague memories of doctor's appointments, but she always assumed they were regular checkups for their age. "I remember you saying you were having trouble sleeping a few years back. And I remember us going to that new doctor in town, what was his name again?" "Dr. Vincent," exclaimed Harold suddenly. "Dr. Vincent Harrison. Now I remember him. He had an office near downtown. And do you remember anything else?" Harold strained his memory. He could vaguely picture a middle-aged man with a mustache, explaining some procedure, but the details were fuzzy, as if he were trying to remember a dream. He talked about a new technique, something about erasing bad memories. "And you were crying so much back then, Dorothy. You cried every day, but I couldn't remember why." Dorothy felt a lump in her throat. She was beginning to recover fragments of memories. She remembered a period of deep sadness, of waking up every night crying, of a constant feeling that something very important had been lost. "Harold, do you think we went there because of Christopher?" "I think so. And from the letters, it seems it worked. We stopped suffering because we stopped remembering." They spent the rest of the week investigating on their own. They went to the city records office looking for records from the period mentioned in the letters. They discovered they had indeed started an adoption process 5 years ago, but it was never completed. At the City Children's Home, a long-time employee recognized them immediately. "Of course I remember you," said Mrs. Constance, a white-haired lady who had worked there for over 20 years. "You used to visit Christopher every week. That boy adored you." "Where is he now, Mrs. Constance?" asked Dorothy, her heart racing. "Well, he was adopted by a family from Chicago, a good family, thank God. But I always knew his heart stayed here with you. Even as a little boy, he talked all the time about his grandparents from Hot Springs." "Do you remember anything else?" "Yes, I do. You arrived here at the end of 2019 saying you wanted to meet the children. At the time, Christopher was about 7 years old. He was a special child, you know, very affectionate, very smart. He had lost his parents in an accident and had no other family. Mrs. Constance took them to the archives and showed them photos from that time. There was Christopher, smiling next to them on various occasions, the orphanage's summer festival, Christmas, birthdays. "Look here," she showed a photo. "This was taken on the last Children's Day you spent with him. You brought a chocolate cake that Dorothy made especially for him." Dorothy looked at the photo, and a wave of emotions washed over her. It was as if a door that had been locked for years suddenly opened. She could vaguely remember the taste of the cake, the boy's joy, the affection she felt for him. "Mrs. Constance, do you know if it's possible to get in touch with him?" "Well, adoptions are protected by confidentiality, you know. But," she lowered her voice, "I can say that he sent a letter about 2 months ago asking if you still lived in Hot Springs." Harold's heart raced. "He asked about us?" "Yes, he did. He said he was trying to find the grandparents he had here in town. He included an email address and asked that, if you ever showed up here, we give it to you." "And where is this letter?" Mrs. Constance rummaged through some drawers and pulled out a sealed envelope. "Here it is. I didn't open it because it was for you, but I confess I was curious. Christopher wrote that he had something very important to tell." Harold took the envelope with trembling hands. On the back was written, "To my dear grandparents, Harold and Dorothy, if you ever remember me one day." They returned home in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. The discovery that Christopher had tried to get in touch changed everything. It meant he hadn't forgotten them, even after all these years. At home they sat in the living room, and Harold opened the letter from the boy who was now a 12-year-old young man. "Dear Grandpa Harold and Grandma Dorothy, I know you don't remember me, but I never forgot you. My name is Christopher Anderson, and you took care of me at the City Children's Home when I was little. You were the only people who made me feel like I had a real family." Dorothy wiped away a tear that insisted on falling. "My adoptive parents are good people, but I've always missed you. Grandma Dorothy made the best chocolate cake in the world, and Grandpa Harold taught me how to play dominoes. You used to take me for walks on those trails near town and show me the different birds." "Harold, do you remember anything about dominoes?" He thought for a moment, and suddenly a flash of an image came to mind. A focused blonde boy, trying to understand the rules of the game, asking why some tiles had more dots than others. "I remember," he exclaimed. "I remember teaching a boy to play dominoes. He was very smart, picked up the rules really fast. I found out that you had a treatment to forget about me because you suffered too much when I left. I understand why you did it, but I really wanted you to know that I'm okay and that I never stopped loving you." The letter went on to explain that Christopher, now living in Chicago with his adoptive parents, had spent years trying to find them. He kept all the memories of the time they spent together and really wanted to see them again. "I know you might not want to see me because of the pain I caused, but I would really like to tell you how my life is now. I'm finishing my freshman year of high school this year. I play soccer at school and I still remember everything you taught me." At the end of the letter, there's a phone number and an email address. "He says he understands if you don't want to get in touch, but that he's been waiting since he was 8 for the chance to say thank you." Harold and Dorothy were silent for a long time. The reality of all they had lost and forgotten was finally clear. They had a grandson in their hearts. They had deeply loved a child, and they chose to forget everything to avoid suffering. "Dorothy, what do you think we should do?" "I don't know, Harold. I'm scared. What if we get in touch and then suffer again? What if he has to leave again? But he's already far away, Dorothy, and from his letters it seems he's fine, that he has a good life. Maybe we could just talk to him, find out how he is. They spent 3 days debating. On one side, the fear of reliving the pain of separation. On the other, the desire to reconnect with someone who clearly loved them very much. It was Dorothy who made the final decision. Let's call him Harold. This boy kept our memory all these years. The least we can do is talk to him. On Thursday morning, with trembling hands, Harold dialed the number from the letter. After 3 rings, a young voice answered. "Hello? Christopher, is that you?" There was a pause on the other end of the line. Then a voice full of emotion. "Grandpa Harold, is it really you?" "Yes, my boy. It's me, and Grandma Dorothy is right here beside me." What followed was a 2-hour conversation full of tears, laughter, and emotional reunion. Christopher talked about his life in Chicago, his studies, his friends, but always returned to the topic of how much he missed them. "I knew you would remember me one day," he said. "That's why I put that bag on the trail where we always used to walk." "You were the one who put the bag there?" asked Harold, surprised. "Yes, I did. I came to Hot Springs last month with my adoptive parents. They understood that I needed to try to find you. I walked on that trail you used to take me on and hung the bag in the spot where you always stopped to rest." "But how did you get our letters?" "Oh, you gave them to me before I left. You said that if I ever grew up and wanted to understand what happened, I should read those letters. I kept them all these years, waiting for the chance to return them to you. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. The revelation that the letters were originally a gift from them to him changed everything. They had left the memories stored for him in case he ever needed to understand why he had to leave. "Christopher, do you want to come visit us?" asked Dorothy, her voice choked up. "May I? My parents said if you wanted to see me, they would bring me next weekend." "Of course you may, my son. We want to see you so much." That week, Harold and Dorothy prepared for the reunion, as if they were welcoming a grandson they hadn't seen in a long time. Dorothy made a chocolate cake following a recipe she magically remembered, and Harold took the dominoes out of the closet to teach Christopher the moves he had forgotten. On Saturday morning, a car with Chicago license plates stopped in front of their house. A tall young man with blonde hair and blue eyes got out of the vehicle and walked slowly to the door. When Dorothy opened the door and saw Christopher up close for the first time in years, all the memories came flooding back at once. It was as if a dam had burst in her mind. She remembered the afternoons they spent together, the movies they watched, the stories she told him to help him sleep. "Grandma Dorothy!" Christopher ran to hug her, and they both cried for long minutes. Harold approached slowly, still processing the experience of seeing the boy who was now almost a man. Christopher let go of his grandmother's hug and extended his hand to him. "Hi, Grandpa Harold, thank you for agreeing to see me." Harold ignored the outstretched hand and pulled his grandson into a tight hug. "My boy, how you've grown, how handsome you are." They spent the entire weekend talking, recovering memories and creating new ones. Christopher showed photos of his life in Chicago, talked about school, his friends, and especially about how he had never forgotten his grandparents from Hot Springs. "You know, Grandma, I always knew you didn't really abandon me. I remembered the love you had for me. That's why I never gave up looking for you." "We're sorry we forgot about you, my son," said Dorothy, with tears in her eyes. "It was very selfish of us." "It wasn't selfish, not at all. You were suffering too much, I understand. But now I can visit you whenever possible, and you can visit me in Chicago too." During the conversation, they discovered that Christopher had become an excellent student, played soccer on the school team, and dreamed of studying to be a veterinarian. But the most important thing was that he had grown into a kind and caring young man, exactly as they remembered him as a child. "You taught me how to be a good person," he said. "Even without remembering, you planted something inside me that never left." Christopher's adoptive parents, Sandra and David Anderson, proved to be understanding and generous people. They understood the importance Harold and Dorothy had in their son's life, and were happy to know he had finally found the grandparents he had been searching for so long. "We always knew Christopher had a special family here in Hot Springs," Sandra said during Sunday lunch. "He talked about you all the time when he was little. We are so happy he managed to find you." "You are always welcome in Chicago," added David. "Christopher can stay here during the holidays, and you can visit whenever you want." Before leaving on Sunday afternoon, Christopher made sure to walk with them to the trail where everything began to reveal itself. At the spot where they found the bag, he pointed to a nearby tree. "Look there," he said, pointing to the trunk of an old tree. Carved into the bark was written, "Christopher plus Grandpa Harold plus Grandma Dorothy, and family forever, 2020. "I did that on the last day we walked together," he explained. "I wanted to leave a mark that we were here, that we were a family, even if only for a short time." Dorothy and Harold looked at the carving on the tree and finally understood that true love does not disappear, even when memory fails. The bond they had created with Christopher was so strong it survived forgetting and distance. "Grandpa, can I ask a question?" said Christopher as they walked back home. "Of course, my boy. Why did you choose to forget me? Couldn't you have kept just the good memories?" Harold thought carefully about his answer. "You know, Christopher, when you love someone very much and that person goes away, the pain is so great it feels like it will break your heart into pieces. At the time, we thought it would be easier to remember nothing than to remember and suffer every day. But you see now that you were wrong." "We do," replied Dorothy. "The pain of losing you was great, but the joy of having known you was much greater. We should have kept the good memories and learned to live with the sad ones. Now you won't forget any more, right?" "Never again, my angel, never again," promised Harold. The following Monday, after Christopher returned to Chicago, Harold and Dorothy went to Dr. Vincent Harrison's office. They wanted to better understand what had happened to them and if there was any way to ensure they wouldn't forget again. The doctor received them with surprise. He was a man in his 50s, with graying hair and thin glasses. When they explained what had happened, he showed genuine satisfaction. "You remember Christopher," he exclaimed. "That's wonderful. It means the memory block wasn't permanent." "Doctor, can you explain to us exactly what happened?" asked Dorothy. "Well, you sought help in 2020 because you were suffering from severe depression caused by the boys' separation. The suffering was so intense you could no longer function normally. You were losing weight, not sleeping, not leaving the house. And then you suggested this treatment?" "Yes. At the time, it was an experimental technique that used a combination of cognitive therapy and specific medication to selectively block traumatic memories. The goal was to allow you to keep all other memories, but block only those related to the suffering of the separation." "But it ended up blocking everything related to Christopher," observed Harold. "Exactly. It was a side effect we didn't expect. Your brains associated all memories of the boy with the pain of separation, so it blocked everything together. And now that we remember, could it become a problem again?" Dr. Vincent smiled. "I don't believe so. You reunited with Christopher, saw that he is well and happy, and established a new relationship with him. The original trauma of the separation was resolved with the reunion." Leaving the office, Dorothy and Harold finally felt at peace with the whole situation. They had understood what had happened and knew they could now move forward without fear of forgetting again. In the following months, they established a routine of constant contact with Christopher. They talked on the phone twice a week, exchanged daily messages, and visited each other once a month. Sometimes he came to Hot Springs, sometimes they went to Chicago. During the January vacation, Christopher spent 2 whole weeks with them. It was a magical period of recovering lost traditions and creating new memories. Dorothy taught him family recipes she had forgotten she knew, and Harold took him to see places in the city he hadn't shown him before. "You know, Grandma, I always dreamed of doing these things with you again," said Christopher one afternoon as they prepared a cornmeal cake together. "What things, my boy?" "These simple things. Cooking together, talking about everything, listening to Grandpa's stories about when he was young. In Chicago I have everything I need, but I always missed this feeling of family that you gave me. And now, "How do you feel now?" asked Dorothy, stirring the cake batter. "Now I feel complete. I have two families who love me. My parents in Chicago, who gave me a good life and raised me with care, and you, who gave me roots and taught me what true love is." Harold, who was listening to the conversation from the kitchen table, was moved by his grandson's words. "Christopher, you know you can count on us for anything, right? Even far away, even at our age, we will always be here for you." "I know, Grandpa. And you know you can count on me too. When I finish my studies and am earning my own money, I want to help you too." "Help how, my dear?" "I want you to be my special guests at my veterinary school graduation. And when I get married one day, I want you to be my official grandparents at the wedding." The idea of participating in these important moments in Christopher's life filled Dorothy and Harold's hearts with a joy they hadn't felt in years. "And there's one more thing," continued Christopher, with a mischievous smile they remembered well from when he was a child. "What else?" asked Harold, curious. "When I have children, you will be great-grandparents, and then I will finally be able to repay all the love you gave me." The prospect of meeting future great-grandchildren was something neither Dorothy nor Harold had imagined they would live to see. They never had children of their own, never thought they would have grandchildren, much less great-grandchildren. "Do you really promise we will be the great-grandparents?" asked Dorothy, with tears of happiness in her eyes. "I promise, Grandma. My children will know your story. They will know how important you are to me, and they will love you as I do." That night, after Christopher went to sleep, Dorothy and Harold talked late into the night about how their lives had changed since discovering the bag hanging on the cliff. "Harold, do you believe in destiny?" asked Dorothy. "How so?" "Do you think it was destiny that we found that bag exactly in the place where we always walked? Do you think Christopher knew we would find it?" Harold thought about his wife's question. It really seemed like much more than a coincidence. "You know, Dorothy, I think Christopher knows us better than we know ourselves. He knew that if he placed the bag in that spot, our curiosity would win out and we would try to get it. And he was right. He was. And do you know why he was right? Because even without remembering him, something inside us never completely forgot. We kept going down that trail because it was the place where we were happy with him." Dorothy smiled at her husband's wisdom. "You're right. We never stopped going there, even without knowing why. It's because true love leaves marks that don't disappear, even when memory fails." In the months that followed, Dorothy and Harold's life gained a new purpose. Beyond the joy of having Christopher back in their lives, they discovered their story could help other people. Dr. Vincent invited them to speak at medical conferences about their experience with memory blocking. They wanted to use their story to alert other professionals about the necessary care when applying such drastic treatments. "You know your story could prevent other families from going through what you went through," said the doctor during one of their follow-up appointments. "How so, Doctor?" asked Dorothy. "Well, there are many situations where people seek help to forget traumas, loss of loved ones, breakups, traumatic accidents. But your story shows that forgetting isn't always the best solution." "And what do you suggest?" "That we look for ways to help people live with the pain, not to eliminate it completely. Pain is also part of life and can teach us important things." Harold agreed with the doctor's assessment. "It's true, Doctor. If we hadn't gone through the pain of losing Christopher, maybe we wouldn't value having him back so much now." The first talk they gave was at a medical school in Atlanta. Dorothy was nervous, but Harold reassured her. "Dorothy, we're just going to tell our story. You don't need to give advice or anything scientific. The doctors will draw their own conclusions." The audience of students and professors was deeply moved by the couple's account. Many were emotional hearing about the reunion and the lessons learned. After the talk, a young student approached them. "Thank you for sharing your story. My grandmother is going through depression after my grandfather passed, and the family was considering a treatment similar to what you did." "And now?" asked Dorothy. "Now we're going to look for other ways to help her. You made me understand that my grandfather's memories, even the sad ones, are too precious to be erased." Stories like this repeated several times. Dorothy and Harold's account was truly making a difference in other people's lives. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. One day they received a special letter. It was from a woman in Dallas who had lost her son in an accident and was considering the memory-blocking treatment. After hearing your story in an online talk, I decided to seek psychological help instead of treatment to forget. I'm learning to live with the pain and to cherish the good memories of my son. Thank you for showing me that forgetting isn't always the best option. Harold, do you see how our story can be useful to other people? Said Dorothy after reading the letter. I do. And you know what? I think all of this happened for a reason. We went through the experience of forgetting and remembering so we could help other families. During this period, the relationship with Christopher continued to strengthen. He had secured a partial scholarship to study veterinary medicine at a private university in Chicago, and part of the tuition was being paid by Dorothy and Harold, who insisted on contributing to their grandson's education. "Grandpa, you don't need to pay for my studies," protested Christopher during one of their weekly calls. "Yes, we do, Christopher. It's our right as grandparents to help you achieve your dreams. But you already do so much for me. We do it because we love you, my boy, and because we lost 5 years of your life. Now we want to make up for that lost time." The grandparents' generosity deeply touched Christopher. He dedicated himself even more to his studies, determined to be worthy of the investment they were making in him. At the end of his first year of college, he came to spend the entire July vacation in Hot Springs. It was a special period because it was the first time he stayed a whole month with them since their reunion. "Grandma, can I ask you a personal question?" he said one afternoon while helping Dorothy tend to the garden. "Of course, my angel. Did you never want to have children of your own?" Dorothy stopped watering the plants and looked at her grandson. "We did, Christopher. We tried for many years, but it didn't work out. We even went through several treatments, but we could never get pregnant. That must have been very hard." "It was. But you know something. Now I understand that God had a different plan for us. He knew that one day he would put you in our path. Do you really think of me as a son?" "Christopher," said Harold, who had approached, "you are not like a grandson to us. You are our grandson, not by blood, but by heart. And the love of the heart is the truest kind there is." This conversation marked an important turning point in their relationship. From that moment on, Christopher began to refer to them as his real grandparents, not just the grandparents from Hot Springs. During that vacation, they did many special activities together. They visited nearby towns, went to a water park, watched movies at the local theater. But the most memorable moment was when Christopher asked them to accompany him back to the city children's home where they had met. "I want to show the children there that it's possible to find a family, even when it seems like it won't work out," he explained. At the children's home, Mrs. Constance welcomed them joyfully. The children were fascinated by the story of the boy who had found his grandparents after so long. "You see," Christopher said to the children during a group conversation, "even when it seems like we're alone, there's always someone in the world who can love us." A girl of about 8 raised her hand. "But what if I never find my family?" Christopher knelt down to her level. "You know something? Family isn't just those who share the same blood as us. Family is those who truly love us, who care for us, who want to see us happy. Sometimes our true family is waiting to meet us. And how will I know when I find them? You'll feel it in your heart. It will be a feeling that you've finally come home." Dorothy and Harold watched the conversation with pride. Christopher had become a wise and generous young man, capable of comforting other children going through the same situation he had lived. "You know, I plan to adopt children too when I grow up," Christopher said on the way back home. "Really?" asked Dorothy. "Really. I want to give other children the chance you gave me. I want to show that it's possible to be happy even coming from a children's home." "That would be wonderful, my boy," said Harold, moved. "And will you help me take care of my adopted children too?" "Of course we will. We'll be the best great-grandparents those children could have." The prospect of being part of the lives of Christopher's future children was something that filled Dorothy and Harold with purpose and hope. They now had a concrete reason to take care of their health and stay active for many years to come. At the end of the vacation, when Christopher returned to Chicago, They felt sad about the goodbye, but also proud to see him growing and developing so well. "You know I love you, right?" he said before boarding the bus. "We know, my dear, and you know we love you even more. Until next month. Until next month." As they watched the bus drive away, Dorothy held Harold's hand. "Harold, do you think we'll live to see Christopher's children?" "We will, Dorothy. We're going to live a long time yet. We have more than enough reasons to now." The following months brought exciting news. Christopher was excelling in college, had gotten an internship at a veterinary clinic, and for the first time mentioned he was dating. "Her name is Rebecca and she's in the same program as me," he shared during a late-night call. "She's a very sweet and smart girl." "Tell us more about her," asked Dorothy, curious. "Well, she's 19 from Indianapolis, and she also lost her parents when she was little. She was raised by her grandparents, so she really understands the importance you have in my life." "And does she want to meet us?" asked Harold. "She does. I talk about you so much she already feels like she knows you. Can I bring her next weekend?" "Of course you can, son. We'd love to meet your girlfriend." The next week, Christopher arrived in Hot Springs, accompanied by a friendly young woman with dark hair and a warm smile. Rebecca showed genuine affection for Christopher's grandparents from the very first moment. "Christopher told me your whole story," she said during lunch. "It's one of the most beautiful love stories I've ever heard." "Thank you, dear," replied Dorothy. "And you? Tell us about your family." "My grandparents raised me too after my parents passed. Their names were Albert and Rose. They passed 3 years ago, but they were the most important people in my life." Harold noticed the emotion in the young woman's voice and immediately identified with her. "So you understand what it means to be raised by grandparents?" "I understand perfectly. That's why I admire your story with Christopher so much. You managed to find each other again, and that's a miracle." Over the weekend, Rebecca proved to be a mature, caring young woman with solid values. She helped Dorothy in the kitchen, talked at length with Harold about life in the countryside, and showed genuine interest in learning more about the family. "Did you like Rebecca?" asked Christopher when they were alone on Sunday morning. "We loved her, son," replied Dorothy. "She's a special girl." "She reminds me of you when you were a child," added Harold. "She has that same sweetness, that same caring way of treating people." "Do you think she could be the right person for me?" "Only you can know that, Christopher, but from what we've seen, she's good for you. She makes you happy." "She does, and most importantly, she wants to build a big family, full of love, like I've always dreamed." "Then follow your heart, my boy." In the following months, the relationship between Christopher and Rebecca grew stronger. They started coming to Hot Springs together regularly, and Dorothy and Harold began to consider her a granddaughter too. Rebecca graduated as a veterinarian 6 months before Christopher and got a job at a clinic in Chicago. When Christopher graduated, he went to work at the same clinic, and they moved into a small apartment near work. "Grandpa, Grandma, I have some news to tell you," said Christopher during a special call on a Thursday night. "What news, son?" "I asked Rebecca to marry me, and she said yes." On the other end of the line, Dorothy and Harold shouted with joy. They had been waiting for this news since they met Rebecca. "When is the wedding?" asked Dorothy, emotional. "We're still planning, but we want it to be in Hot Springs. We want to get married in the church where you got married, if that's possible." "Of course it's possible, my dear. We'll take care of everything. And you'll walk me down the aisle, right? You'll give me away to Rebecca?" Harold couldn't hold back his emotion. "It would be the greatest honor of our lives, Christopher." "Great. Then mark your calendars, wedding in December." The months leading up to the wedding were filled with intense preparation. Dorothy threw herself completely into organizing the party, choosing flowers, tasting menus, taking care of every detail. Harold took charge of arranging the more practical matters, like the venue, music, and decorations. "Dorothy, have you seen how happy Christopher is?" Harold commented one afternoon while they were visiting a catering service for the wedding. "Yes, I have. He's radiant, and Rebecca is too." "Can you believe we're going to be the bride's grandparents too?" "Yes, I can. She already treats us like grandparents. And you know something, Harold." "What?" "I never thought at our age we'd have the joy of organizing a grandchild's wedding." "That's true. Life always surprises us." The wedding was set for December 15th, with a ceremony at 6 p.m. at St. Mary's Church, the same church where Dorothy and Harold had been married 52 years earlier. During the wedding week, Dorothy and Harold's house turned into a command center. Rebecca had come with her bridesmaids a few days earlier for the final preparations, and the house was full of laughter, conversation, and anticipation. "Grandma Dorothy, can I ask you for something?" Rebecca said the night before the wedding. "Of course, my dear. Could you lend me something of yours to wear tomorrow? I wanted to take a little piece of you with me down the aisle." Dorothy was moved by the request. "I have the perfect thing," she said, going to the bedroom and returning with a small jewelry box. Inside the box was a delicate pearl necklace. "This necklace was my mother's, then it was mine, and now I want it to be yours." "Grandma, I can't accept something so valuable." "Of course you can. You're our granddaughter now. This necklace stays in the family." On the wedding day, St. Mary's Church was decorated with white and yellow flowers, Rebecca's favorite colors. The guests were few, but all were special. Christopher's adoptive parents, some friends from college, Dorothy and Harold's dear neighbors, and staff from the city children's home where it all began. When it was time for the bride's entrance, Christopher took his place at the altar accompanied by Harold, who served as the best man. On the other side, Rebecca entered arm in arm with Dorothy, who took on the role of matron of honor. "Are you ready, my dears?" the priest asked before beginning the ceremony. "We are," Christopher and Rebecca answered in unison. The ceremony was moving from start to finish. When it came time for the vows, Christopher asked to speak first. "Rebecca, when I was a child living in the children's home, I used to dream that one day I would find a family that truly loved me. I found that family in my grandparents, Dorothy and Harold. They taught me what true love is. And now with you I'm going to create my own family, based on the same love they gave me." Rebecca wiped away a tear before speaking. "Christopher, you showed me that family is so much more than blood. It's love, it's care, it's wanting the best for the other person. And Grandpa Harold and Grandma Dorothy taught me that it's possible to love someone as if they were your own family from the very first meeting. I promise to care for you and our family with the same affection they have cared for us." When the priest pronounced the words, "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the entire church erupted in applause and tears of happiness. At the reception, which was held in the parish hall next to the church, Dorothy and Harold gave a moving speech. "Friends," Harold began, "today is a very special day for us. We are watching our grandson Christopher marry a wonderful young woman we also consider our granddaughter. A few years ago," Dorothy continued, "we didn't even know Christopher existed. We had forgotten about him due to a medical treatment. But true love always finds a way back to the heart. Today, seeing the two of them begin their lives together, we are sure we did everything right, that we chose love over forgetting. And now," Harold finished, "all that's left is to wait for the great-grandchildren." Christopher and Rebecca laughed and hugged. "Don't worry," Christopher said into the microphone. "You'll be great-grandparents sooner than you think." The party lasted until dawn. There was dancing, good food, and many stories shared. It was a perfect celebration of love in all its forms. The love of grandparents for a grandson, the love between the newlyweds, and the love of a chosen family that found each other against all odds. After the honeymoon in Aspen, Christopher and Rebecca settled in Chicago and began planning their future. They wanted to wait 2 years before having children, enough time to get established professionally and financially. During this period, the family kept up their routine of monthly gatherings and weekly calls. Dorothy and Harold closely followed the couple's professional growth and grew prouder each day of the young people they had become. "Grandma, I have news," Rebecca said during a call on a Tuesday in August. "What news, my dear?" "I'm pregnant," Dorothy shouted with such joy that Harold came running from the living room to see what was happening. "Pregnant? Really pregnant?" "Really, Grandma. 2 months. Harold, we're going to be great-grandparents." The news of the pregnancy brought immense joy to the whole family. Dorothy and Harold immediately began planning how to help with the baby, where he would sleep when he came to visit, what toys they would buy. "Easy, everyone," Christopher laughed during the first visit after the pregnancy announcement. The baby isn't even born yet, and you're already planning his life up to age 18. It's just that we're so excited, my son, Dorothy explained. We never thought we'd live to see a great-grandchild. And you'll live to see much more than that, Rebecca said, stroking her still discreet belly. We want to have at least 3 children. 3? Harold exclaimed. We'll have to expand the house. The months of Rebecca's pregnancy were closely followed by the grandparents. They made sure to go to Chicago for all the important appointments and ultrasounds. Look, Christopher said, showing the first ultrasound. Can you see the baby? Dorothy and Harold looked at the small, blurry image on the paper, but they could make out the tiny form of their future great-grandchild. Our first great-grandchild, Dorothy whispered, delicately touching the image. Our first, but not the last, Harold added with a smile. When they found out it was a boy, the joy was even greater. So what are you going to name him? Dorothy asked. We wanted a name that honored you in some way, Rebecca said. How about Harold? Christopher suggested. No, no, Harold protested. The boy needs a name of his own, not an old man's name. What about Benjamin? Rebecca suggested. It's a beautiful name and it means stone, like those stones where you found the bag that changed our lives. Benjamin Mitchell Anderson. Christopher tried it out. Benjamin, Ben, I like it. So Benjamin it is, Rebecca confirmed. Benjamin was born on a March morning, weighing 7 pounds and measuring 20 inches. Dorothy and Harold were in the hospital waiting room when Christopher came out of the room with tears in his eyes. He's born. He's a beautiful boy. How is Rebecca? Dorothy asked, quickly standing up. She's fine. She's great. Do you want to meet your grandson? In the bedroom, Rebecca was lying on the bed with a small bundle in her arms. When Dorothy and Harold approached and saw the baby's face, they were both deeply moved. Hello, Ben, whispered Dorothy. I'm your great-grandmother, Dorothy. And I'm your great-grandfather, Harold, added Harold, gently touching the baby's tiny hand. Benjamin opened his little eyes and seemed to look directly at them. Look at that, said Christopher. He's looking at you. It's as if he knows you're special. May I hold him? Asked Dorothy. Of course you may, Grandma. Dorothy carefully picked Benjamin up and began to softly sing a lullaby her own mother used to sing to her. Sleep, my little one, for the night has come. Sleep, my treasure, for Mama has rocked you. Benjamin immediately calmed at his great-grandmother's voice. Wow, he liked your voice, Grandma, observed Rebecca. It's because he recognizes love, said Harold philosophically. In the first months of Benjamin's life, Dorothy and Harold took turns helping Christopher and Rebecca. They spent 1 week each month in Chicago, caring for their grandson while the parents worked. Grandparents, you don't have to sacrifice so much for us, protested Rebecca one afternoon, seeing Dorothy tending to the baby while she rested. Sacrifice? Laughed Dorothy. My dear, taking care of little Ben is the greatest joy of our lives. It's true, confirmed Harold. We are living something we never thought we'd experience. Every day with him is a gift. Benjamin proved to be a calm and smiling baby. He seemed to have a special connection with his great-grandparents, always calming down whenever they arrived and smiling when he heard their voices. Look how he reacts when he sees you, observed Christopher one afternoon. It's as if he knows your special family. It's because we are, said Dorothy, stroking the baby's blonde hair. We are the family that destiny brought together. When Benjamin turned 6 months old, Christopher and Rebecca had a small party in Chicago, but the main celebration was in Hot Springs, at the great-grandparents' house. I want Ben to know the house where it all began, explained Christopher. I want him to grow up knowing our family's story. And will we tell him the whole story when he's older? Asked Rebecca. Yes, we will, replied Harold. He will know how we found that bag hanging on the cliff and how it changed our lives forever. And when he's older, we'll take him to see the place where we found the bag, added Dorothy. Benjamin's 6-month party was emotional. Christopher's adoptive parents came. Mrs. Constance from the City Children's Home, neighbors, friends, and many people who had followed the family's story over the years. Everyone, said Christopher in a short speech during the party. Today we are celebrating Benjamin's 6 months, but we are also celebrating 5 years since we were reunited. This family gathered here today only exists because of a green bag hanging on a cliff. And because of a love that does not forget, added Rebecca. That's why I want to make a toast, continued Christopher, raising his glass, to a love that withstands time, distance, and even forgetfulness, to our family, chosen by the heart. To family! Everyone shouted in unison. That night, after the guests had left and Benjamin was asleep, the family sat on the house's porch to talk. You know I still have that green bag we found on the cliff, said Harold. Really? Asked Christopher. Really, I kept it as a memento. And you know what I'm going to do with it? What? I'm going to fill it with letters and gifts for Benjamin and put it in the attic of the house. When he grows up and wants to know more about our family, he'll find everything there. What a beautiful idea, Grandpa, exclaimed Rebecca. And I'll also write the story of how we met, so he never forgets. And if we have more grandchildren? Asked Christopher. We'll make a bag for each one, replied Dorothy. Each grandchild will have their own collection of family memories. Speaking of more grandchildren, said Rebecca with a mysterious smile. What is it? Everyone asked at the same time. Well, it seems Benjamin is going to have a little brother sooner than we planned. What do you mean? Asked Dorothy. I'm pregnant again. 2 months. Rebecca's second pregnancy was received with even more joy than the first. Benjamin would be just 1.5 years when his brother was born, but everyone was excited about the idea of having 2 babies at home. 2 great-grandchildren, murmured Harold one night lying in bed next to Dorothy. Can you believe it? Sometimes I can't, Harold. It feels like a dream. It's a dream that came true, and do you know why it came true? Why? Because we never gave up on love. Even when we forgot, love stayed there deep in our hearts, waiting to return. And now we have a big, happy family. And it's going to get even bigger. The second baby, a girl named Emily, was born on a sunny September day. When Dorothy and Harold saw her for the first time, she was even tinier than Benjamin had been, but equally perfect. Hello, Emily, whispered Harold, picking up his great-granddaughter. Welcome to the family. Emily looked very much like her mother, dark hair, big eyes, and a delicate way of moving. Benjamin, who was already crawling, was fascinated with his sister from day one. Look how he takes care of her, observed Dorothy, watching Benjamin try to give his pacifier to Emily when she cried. He's going to be a protective brother, said Christopher. Like you were protective of me when we were little at the City Children's Home, Rebecca remembered. I was? Of course. You always shared your toys with me and defended me when the bigger boys picked on me. I don't remember that. Well, we met at the children's home, but you forgot. I was 5 and you were 7. I was only there for 6 months before going to my grandparents' house, but I never forgot the kind boy who looked after me. Christopher was moved by this revelation. Rebecca, why did you never tell me this before? Because I wanted you to fall in love with me for who I am now, not for a childhood memory. But that makes everything even more special. It means we were meant to find each other. Exactly. And it means our children come from 2 families who met at the children's home and found each other again through love. Dorothy and Harold listened to this conversation with emotion. The family story was becoming more beautiful and complex every day. My dears, have you seen what a beautiful story we have to tell Benjamin and Emily when they grow up? Said Dorothy. A story of love, loss, reunion, and family, summarized Harold. With 2 babies at home, the routine became busier, but also happier. Dorothy and Harold now spent 2 weeks a month in Chicago, helping to care for their great-grandchildren. Grandma, Grandpa, don't you think you're getting too tired? Asked Christopher one afternoon, watching Harold playing on the floor with Benjamin while Dorothy gave Emily her bottle. Tired, laughed Harold. My son, we're renewing our energy. These children give us new life every day. It's true, confirmed Dorothy. Waking up and seeing their smiles is better than any medicine. When Benjamin turned 2, he was already talking a lot and beginning to understand that Dorothy and Harold were special people in his life. Gammy Dorothy, he shouted every time she arrived. Gampy Harry was what he called Harold. Emily, at 6 months, already smiled for them and calmed down when she heard their voices. Benjamin, said Dorothy one afternoon while they played in the backyard. "Do you know who we are?" "Gammy and Gampy," he replied, as if it were obvious. "That's right. And do you know why we love you so much?" Benjamin thought for a moment with the seriousness only 2-year-olds can muster. Because you live in our hearts." The boy's spontaneous answer moved Dorothy so deeply that she had to step away to avoid crying in front of him. "Harold," she said when she found her husband in the kitchen, "did you hear what Benjamin said?" "I did. That boy is special, Dorothy. He understands love in a way some adults never manage to." That night, after the children had fallen asleep, Christopher and Rebecca talked with their grandparents about the future. "Grandpa, Grandma, we have a proposal for you," said Christopher. "What proposal?" asked Harold. "We were thinking, how about you come live here in Chicago with us?" Dorothy and Harold looked at each other surprised. "Live here? Leave Hot Springs?" "We know it's difficult," said Rebecca, "but think of the advantages. You could see the children every day. We could better look after your health and they could grow up close to their great-grandparents." "And what about our house in Hot Springs?" asked Dorothy. "You could sell it or rent it out. With the money, we could buy a bigger house here with a room for you. But what about our friends and the life we built there?" "Grandma," said Christopher, taking her hand, "your life is here now. It's with this family, with these children. Hot Springs will always be in your hearts, but the future is here." Dorothy and Harold asked for some time to think. It was a very important decision and would completely change their lives. "What do you think, Harold?" asked Dorothy the following night as they walked through the streets of Chicago. "I think they're right, Dorothy. Our life is here now. We already spend more time here than in Hot Springs. But we'll miss our town." "We will, but we'll miss the children much more if we stay there and they grow up here." "And what if it doesn't work out?" "It will, Dorothy. We've always made it work when we're together." After 2 weeks of reflection, they made their decision. "Christopher, Rebecca," said Harold on a Sunday morning, "we've decided to accept your proposal." "Really?" they both shouted in unison. "Really, we'll sell the house in Hot Springs and come live here with you." "But only on one condition," added Dorothy. "What condition?" "We'll keep helping with the children, but you must promise you won't treat us like useless old folks. We still have a lot to give." "Of course, Grandma," laughed Rebecca. "You'll be an active part of the family. The children need their great-grandparents." The move to Chicago happened 3 months later. They sold the house in Hot Springs to a young family who promised to take good care of the garden Dorothy loved so much, and bought a large house in Chicago with rooms for everyone and a spacious backyard for the children to play in. "Harold, do you have any regrets?" asked Dorothy on the first night in the new house. "No, Dorothy. I'm at peace. This is our family now. This is our place." Adapting to life in Chicago was easier than they had imagined. Benjamin and Emily were always around, filling the house with laughter and activity. Dorothy discovered she loved cooking for the big family, and Harold enjoyed building toys and teaching Benjamin how to play simple games. 1 year after the move, Rebecca became pregnant with their 3rd child. "This time it's a surprise," she announced during a family lunch. "We won't know the gender until it's born." "Another great-grandchild," celebrated Dorothy. "Or great-granddaughter," added Harold. Benjamin, now 3 years old, was excited about the idea of having another brother or sister. "Daddy, when the baby is born, can I teach them how to play dominoes like Grandpa Harold taught me?" "Of course you can, champ." Emily, at 1.5 years, didn't understand much about babies yet, but she could sense the family's excitement and was happy too. The 3rd baby, a boy named Nathan, was born at the end of the year. When Dorothy saw his face for the first time, she had a strange feeling of déjà vu. "Harold," she whispered, "don't you think Nathan looks like someone?" "He does. He looks like Christopher when he was little." "That's exactly what I was thinking." Nathan really did look a lot like his father as a child. Blonde hair, light blue eyes, and a calm way of observing everything around him. "It's as if history is repeating itself," observed Rebecca. "Now we have our own little Christopher. Only this time he'll grow up in a complete family from the start," said Christopher, moved. With 3 young grandchildren at home, the routine became hectic, but full of joy. Dorothy and Harold, now 72 and 74 respectively, remained active and present in the children's lives. "Grandma," said Benjamin one afternoon as she was telling him a story, "are you and Grandpa going to stay with us forever?" "Why do you ask, my love?" "Because I never want you to go away." Dorothy felt her heart tighten. Benjamin was growing up and beginning to understand concepts like separation and loss. "We will stay with you for as long as God allows, my angel, and even when we are no longer here physically, we will remain in your hearts." "How so?" "Every time you remember a story Grandma told, or a game Grandpa taught you, we will be there with you." "And what if I forget?" "You won't forget, Benjamin. True love is never completely forgotten." This conversation made Dorothy reflect on the importance of creating solid memories with her grandchildren. She began writing a detailed diary of all the special moments they shared, so the children could read it when they grew up. Harold had the same idea, and started recording videos telling the family's story, from the day they found the bag on the cliff to the birth of each grandchild. "Dorothy, do you think the children will be interested in these stories when they grow up?" he asked one night. "They will, Harold. Every child wants to know where they came from, what their family's story is. And we have quite a story to tell." "We certainly do. A story of love that overcame forgetting." When Nathan turned 6 months old, the family decided to take a special trip to Hot Springs. They wanted to show the 3 children the place where it all began. "Shall we take them to see the trail where we found the bag?" asked Dorothy. "Yes, we will. And we'll tell them the whole story, adapted for their age." The trip to Hot Springs was emotional. The town had changed a bit, but the trail where they used to walk remained the same. The cliff where they found the bag was still there, imposing and mysterious. "Benjamin, Emily, Nathan," said Christopher when they reached the exact spot, "this is where our family began." "How so, Daddy?" asked Benjamin, ever curious. "This is where Grandpa and Grandma found a bag with letters that helped me find them again." "Where is the bag?" asked Emily, looking around. "The bag is kept safe at home, my love," replied Dorothy. "One day when you're older, we'll show it to you." Harold pointed to the tree where Christopher had carved the names years before. The carving was still visible, though worn by time. "Look there," he said. "Your daddy's name is written with ours." Benjamin tried to read it, but he still couldn't read very well. "What does it say, Grandpa?" "Christopher Ploul's Grandpa, Harold Ploul's Grandma, Dorothy Ploul's family forever." "And now there are more people in the family," exclaimed Emily. "That's true," laughed Rebecca. "Now the family is much bigger." Harold took out a pocket knife he had brought and began carving a new message into the tree. "Benjamin, Emily, Nathan, 2029, 3rd generation of love." "There," he said when he finished. "Now this tree tells the complete story of our family." The children were impressed by the ritual and asked to touch the new carving. "Daddy," said Benjamin, "when I grow up, can I bring my children here too?" "Of course you can, champ. This tree will be our family's memorial forever." That night, staying at an inn in Hot Springs, Dorothy and Harold talked about how they felt returning to the city where they had lived for so long. "You know, Harold, I don't miss living here." "Me neither. Our home is now wherever our family is. It's funny how things have changed. Before we thought Hot Springs was our whole world. Now we see that our world is the people we love. And what a beautiful world we have, Dorothy. What a lovely family we've built." End of story. Now tell us what you thought of this moving story of love, family, and reunion. Do you believe true love can withstand even forgetting? Leave your opinion in the comments and tell us which part of the story touched your heart the most. If you have similar stories in your family, we'd love to hear them. Don't forget to leave your like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other emotional stories like this one.